GM, everyone, welcome to the modern market, where every day we discuss everything to do with the modern market. That is the very green crypto market, the gold market very recently, which we've probably been looking at every day, the NFT market, and how to make some or a lot of money on the internet. Loaded up for discussion today, we have BTC soaring higher to 119K, ETH at 4.4K, despite the US government being in shutdown mode. We wanted to talk on that yesterday, did run out of time, but I'm very happy to have Funky with me today, who definitely has more to say on that than I will. Second piece of headline, PunkStrategy hitting an all-time high at 150 mil FTV and market cap before retracing to 133 mil. Also, all the other strategies are doing pretty well, especially the Moonbirds one. And then third headline, Vision says AI announces $2 billion treasury strategy focused on Solana. Also have a couple bits and bobs of news tied to the RWA space if we have time to get into that. And discussion on airdrops. It's been a popular post by Whale Swoosh, and people have been discussing what seems to be the most underfarmed airdrop, what is overfarmed. So kind of want to give our takes on that as well. I do have Funky with me in the co-host seat to do the show today, and we're almost ready to get into it. But before we do that, just a quick reminder, friends, that nothing that we say on the show is financial advice. This market, as green as it might be, is extremely risky. We do not know anything for sure. So please do proceed with caution and exercise your own judgment. With that out of the way, I'm Funky. It's Thursday, October 2nd. It's a very, very green week. It's beautiful to look at the charts. So how are you doing? How are you feeling?
GM, I am great. I gotta say, you guys picked the perfect time to do the rebrand with the new green color, right at the precipice of Q4, and we start October, and here we are. So yeah, I think it's always great. I mean, what about Zach? I mean, talk about a blast from the past. I have no idea why that thing is pumping like crazy. I guess maybe people are interested in privacy again, but yeah, I just love to see pretty much green all the way down. Of course, except for XPL after I get into the LP on PRJX, right? Like it's like, oh, okay, yeah, suffer some IL, but yeah, it's great. You're muted, Ledge.
Yeah, I was saying this Zcash run is incredible. Like it's absurd. But to Plasma, did you see the statement on the timeline where they've been basically specifying, where is it? I think I have it somewhere here. There we go. Paul, the founder of Plasma, was posting a number of rumors circulating since the launch of XPL, and we want to set the record straight. No team members have sold any XPL. All investor in Team XPL is locked for 3 years. And then the second point, I actually found this hilarious that they're commenting on it, because the FUD on the timeline was, oh, it's the ex-Blur team. It's Blur people working on that again. And they're making the point to say that out of our team of 50, only 3 spend time at Blur or Blast. Our team members also come from Google, Facebook, Square, Temasek, Goldman Sachs, and Nuvei. To say our team is quote-unquote ex-Blast is to say it is ex any of these firms. We are proud of the team we've assembled at Plasma. And then to the market-making stuff, which was the FUD around Wintermute painting the chart. They said we have not engaged Wintermute as a market maker and have never contracted with Wintermute for any of their services. We have the same information as the public on Wintermute's ownership of XPL, and that they're laser focused on building the future of money, et cetera, et cetera. But I don't know. I found this a bit weird that we are now doing this thing, and it's not only with Plasma. It's the same with, what was it? Solstice, the like now very popular DeFi protocol where everyone's rushing to deposit it on Solana, has 180 mil or so in TVL, and there were these allegations that some people worked at a company before, which also either worked or wasn't successful. I think it didn't work. It just was shutting down because it wasn't successful, and that we kind of go around and be like, "Oh, this is fishy. You have some people who worked at Blast before, therefore I can't trust you." I don't know. How do you feel about this? I think, you can FUD them for whatever you want to FUD, but this is where I think it gets ridiculous. You are on mute.
I think humans need something to talk about at all times, right? Like it's just, you're creating a mountain out of a molehill. I think it might have been Swizzy in the chat, said something along the lines of like, we know we're really entering the full bull phase where people are either like just peak bullishness on one side or just fighting everything at every turn. Like it's all going to collapse, right? So I don't know. I'm not worried about it. I don't really pay much attention to these things. They're so ephemeral, right? I mean, like, I think the thing I saw about Plasma was Clemente had a video that started to get real hot that I saw maybe right before I went to bed. And I kind of laughed at it because, it's Clemente. He's funny. But like outside of that, no, I don't really worry or care.
Yeah, that's fair enough. You said you are holding Plasma. Is that right?
Yeah, so I got into it late, obviously, and all I did was just buy a small amount to do the liquidity provision on Project X. That's the only real exposure I have, of course. But I bought when it was like, I don't know, $1.25, and so then my pool went out of balance. In fact, I think we talked about at the end, and I said, "Oh, well, it'll come back in range," and then I was like, "I'll just suck it up and take the IL and just go back in and do a wider range." And because again, it wasn't any like crazy amount that I bought into.
Sounds good. I still have a good spot bag as well. Still trade around with it on perps, but I think I'm just gonna close the perps trade for now. I feel like it's too distracting, it's too volatile, and I want to have my like midterm exposure to the token. I don't want to be looking at the plasma chart every day because that one is moving too much, and I just don't want to be distracted by a perps trade with this one specifically.
Yeah, and I think it's one of these trades where because we were in sort of this downtrend, anybody just glommed on to whatever pump happened, as quickly, whether it was Aster or whether it was ARK, people just rotating into one thing after the next, trying to chase it. And I think what happened is people made money and then the market started to pump. It's like, oh, wait, I'm out of position for this or that. And so they're just selling off some of the XPL to, get back into position. So it's to be expected, right?
Yeah, that's a very good point. Look, we have a ton of things to discuss, so let's get into it, starting with the price action. We have BTC being up almost 2%, 118.6K. When it says 119, we have ETH at 4.4K, up 1.9%. We have Ripple XRP at $3, up another 2%. BNB doing the same thing, up 2% at 1,046. Solana is outperforming here, up 3.5% to $225, also up almost 12% over the week. Definitely quite beautiful to look at that. In terms of our alternative majors, Hyperliquid is almost back at $50, 49.40. That is up 5% on the day, up 16.7% on the week. Pretty impressive performance there as well. Last but not least, from our alternative majors section, SUI up another 4%, $3.5 for one SUI token. Also taking a look, oopsie, there we go, at the meme coin side of things. The Doge up 6.5%, that looks solid. SHIB up 3%, Pepe up 4%. Very green day across the board, it seems. Pengu up 3%, Bonk up 2.5%, Trump up 2%, SPX up another 17%, up 20% on the week. Definitely outperforming here. Fartcoin also having a bit of a run, up 7%, up 17% on the week, almost back to 70 cents. Still obviously far away from all-time high, but it is doing something. Mockcoin up 17%, 26 on the week. Just scrolling down to see a bit more on the price action. Useless is up 50%, up 40% on the week. Rect is also having a bit of a run, up 11% on the day. Basically everything is green. There's like nothing that is significant to report on that is red, maybe with the exception of Plasma, but that is not a meme coin. And we have touched on that already. In terms of the main headlines, I said it at the top of the show. We have the market is running, gold is running, stocks are running, everything is running, despite the US government being in shutdown mode. Kind of also dive into what that means for ETF approvals and other things that might or might not affect us, to just see how we feel about this shutdown. Then PunkStrategy hitting an all-time high at 150 mil before it did retrace to 133 mil, and the other strategies, especially the Moonbirds, doing quite well. Last but not least, another Solana treasury strategy that is coming to life via VisionSys AI and plans to acquire $2 billion worth of Solana. Then taking a look, just let me get that up on screen and find it. At the NFT side of things, there's quite a bit to report on actually today, especially the Moonbirds. Not only is Bird Strategy or Burb Strategy doing quite well, so are the Moonbirds. They are up 20% on the day, they're up 30% on the week, 3.7 ETH floor, no stopping the Moonbirds. Pudgy Penguins down 1%, continuing the downtrend, sliding on the 10 ETH, 9.86 ETH floor there. Genesis, they're down a bit on the day, just reporting on them because we want to talk about airdrops either way. But these OpenSea NFTs are still up 40% on the week, sitting at a 0.03 ETH floor. Ladies up 2%, almost 3%, 1.58 ETH floor, 1.85 ETH floor, sorry for that. Toads up 14%, up 26 on the week at a 0.87 ETH floor. So quite a bit of green price action. But the thing we do have to mention are the Hypurr NFTs. They up massively, 1,556 hype floor. That is 71K for one of these beautiful cats. If you want to have one of them, Cyrus was also pointing out that yesterday someone swept 25 Hypurr NFTs for 1.7 mil, immediately transferred all of them to 25 individual wallets. Basically, the thinking there is that they're going to be airdrop magnets, is what Cyrus is saying, for all the top hyperliquid protocols. And hence, you don't want to have all of them 25 sitting in a single wallet, but rather have them spread out to see how you can make the most out of it. I gotta say, I'm pretty annoyed on the Hypurr side because my plan was to wait for the Legion presale to return my funds if I'm not fully allocated, take those stables, take a bit of hype, buy one. And yesterday I could have done that for a couple hundred hype cheaper. But now I still don't know my Legion presale allocation. I'm still waiting on that. I still don't have my stables back. And if I want to buy one, I now have to spend 20 grand more. So that is the situation with these Hypurr NFTs. Funky, any thoughts?
Hopefully you make it back with the Legion presale, right? Because I know you were least accepted. So yeah, that's the one thing I saw. A lot of people were very upset about being just rejected in general, or not understanding what their allocation is, and so on and so forth. But as far as the Hypurr NFTs, I mean, hey, this is kind of what I said the other day. You have people who are sort of nouveau riche that just made a ton on hype. They don't care that these things cost that much, and why not, right? If you're a hype whale and you think that there's going to be, and you can afford to speculate, you want to sweep 25 of them and put them into individual wallets. Sounds like a big headache to me, trying to juggle all those various wallet addresses and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, hey, well played, right?
Yeah, that's a bit tough to manage, especially if you want to do it manually. And if you then think that you have two assumptions there. Basically, one would be they're an airdrop multiplier. If you think they're a multiplier for some protocols, then you need to have activity on all of these protocols with the Hypurr NFTs. And if you want to have activity across, I don't know, 25 wallets doing stuff on Project X, that gets quite bothersome. If you just think they're going to get per se allocations for whichever protocol, then it's easier. Then you have to split them. But I'm the same with my band bonds. Like I have 69 of those, but I hold all of them in the same wallet. Like I just can't be bothered to try to get whitelist allocations on 69 wallets and do whatever there is to be done. I just have them in one wallet and that's it. But that might change as Mega ETH goes live, and we'll see if they will be interesting assets to be had or if people won't care about them. But yeah.
It's like paycheck, lazy farming, right? Just spread them into 25 wallets, let them sit there. If they get something, great. If not, you could sell them as they, more people demand increases, because these things don't seem to be slowing down.
Yeah, the one thing I'm wondering is like, what is the basically minimum farming amount or minimum position size that you should have if you want to buy a Hypurr NFT? Like, is it, say someone has 100K worth of exposure on Hyperliquid and they could afford to buy one, but then they have like 70% of the Hyperliquid exposure tied up in one NFT. And then they have only 30K to farm. So is that then still a good trade? Because then you're like heavily speculating either on the floor price to appreciate, and obviously you have like 70% of a single chain exposure in like one NFT in one single asset, And then you're speculating on if you want to hold it, getting airdrops without like as a like base allocation and not speculating too much on the boost. I feel like I would be more comfortable if I had more exposure than that on hype, and if basically not all of my hype exposure comes through quote unquote just owning one Hypurr NFT. I would feel like that is a bit of a not too healthy of a balance. So it's pretty imbalanced. Yeah.
No, I wouldn't do that. That seems like a crazy trade. This sounds like yesterday when Brad was talking about the guy who basically bought a Hypurr NFT and then listed it for 50 hype higher. And was like, okay, bro, like you shouldn't be, because then theoretically you're rolling in pretty much all of your hype, your whole bag, just to try and get a quick flip for a small amount. Same thing. Like I feel like the capital would be better off used farming the different, dApps that are on Hypurr EVM than trying to lock it up in an NFT.
Yeah, that kind of goes back to this discussion that we are having occasionally on the show with the hyperfixation on CT to hit a hero trade, to have like, oh, I put my entire bag into this NFT and it went to 3K hype and I basically took it from 50K to 140K, 3x my bags, etc., etc. And it might work for some, but I still am of the very strong opinion that for the majority of people trying to grow a 5 or 6 figure portfolio higher, that there is no point in going all in and having this approach of, I'm going to go in with a 6 fig bag and I either turn it to 7 or go to 0 and then start again. I feel like that's the easiest way to get burnt and just waste a couple of years until you build all of that back and in the same position that you were before.
Yeah, I mean, did you see the Warren Buffett meme going around a couple weeks ago, where it basically shows him like in 1956 with a paper, and it says like net worth 100 grand, and then basically fast forwards and it's whatever, however many billions Berkshire Hathaway has grown into 50 years later, and it's like the Herald, holding the paper, and it just basically says like 100K net worth at whatever 9 a.m. and it's like $150 at 10:30 a.m. Like just the lopsided kind of thing. And I think that to your point, right, I've seen more conversations, especially people who are in, say, their second or third cycle, that realize the power in, and I think Farm Rick did a great job in his article talking about how he built and compounded wealth slowly over time just by taking that 2 or 3x and just taking it off the table. Maybe you let some more risk run after you've gotten, but you just stack those steady, consistent wins. And especially if you stable up a lot of it and then you can redeploy that as capital. It seems like part of your airdrop success has been that, in terms of deploying capital, letting it come out, you take the airdrop, you sell it off. Beachhead's done the same thing too, in terms of just, consistently stacking. And I think that's far more powerful than trying to hit the home run.
Yeah, very much agree with that. Have nothing to add on that. One thing I quickly want to share, because you mentioned Berkshire, and then we're going to get into the Web3 roundup. Did you ever have a look at Berkshire's homepage? I think it's the
not
best
a long
thing.
time.
I'm gonna share this on screen for people watching us on video, but I'm very curious to see your reaction, because it's basically Warren Buffett's way of saying, I just don't give a fuck. Like, this is Berkshire's homepage. I'm just describing that. It's basically white background, Berkshire Hathaway on top with their address, and then it has just a bunch of links to SEC filings, reports, message from Warren E. Buffett, etc., with no design whatsoever.
Okay, so as the 50-year-old, I gotta
Geico car insurance, which I love.
well, because he was famously bought Geico, like that was one of his really early investments. So people don't even remember that it's like government employee insurance company or something like that is what Geico actually stands for, because it was, when it started off, it was just for government employees. We're going to talk about shutdowns in a minute. But what I loved about you sharing that was that for those who are young out there who are listening, right? Because take it from the 50-year-old, that is exactly what the internet looked like when I signed up and got the name Funky on my AOL in 1995. Almost everything was just these really basic HTML. You have one hyperlink that you click it, and it's usually not even interactive. It just takes you to another digital billboard of information. Like, it was just a very, very different beast pre-2000. So that really took me back.
Yeah, this was look, sorry for the sidetrack here. Let's get into the Web3 roundup. You're not here to look at Berkshire's homepage, but to get up to speed with what's happening in crypto. So let's get you all the news that you need to know. First of which, from the Roundup, Sweden has now 2 Democrats that came forward with a proposal to establish a Bitcoin strategy, a Bitcoin reserve as well, like that quite a lot. Later said that the public mainnet is live after 8 months of private beta. So this came just earlier today, 10 hours ago or so. And next piece of news, we talked price action. We talked about Tibir on the show, I think one of the shows last week. And the run is going up and up and up, just past Tyler shared that. 300 mil went to 316 mil. So that AI agent on virtuals is absolutely smashing it. Then we had this, which we already commented on, Paul issuing the statement on Plasma that the team didn't sell. Another piece of news from Ethos. Ethos launched the broker trusted marketplace where you can say that you're looking for work, that you have work to offer, that you're hiring someone, that you're selling and buying things. And one of the most hilarious posts from there was, where is it? I posted because I had to, when I saw it in the morning, someone was looking for work, $350 a month, saying, we'll do anything and everything as long as it's legal-ish. Absolutely love to see that one. And going back to that, USD AI, we're going to speak about airdrops a bit as well, has announced that they have now something that has a higher multiplier than the Pendlify farming. They're giving away a 30x multiplier to case.fun. And that leads me exactly into this post by Whale, which I wanted to touch on. It wasn't only Whale. I think Zeneca had the same post out there, basically asking people what are the most underfarmed airdrops for Q4 and what are the airdrops that people are looking at. And Whale has basically curated a list from the post that he shared earlier to touch on 9 specific ones. First of which being Yeet, the crypto casino, which listeners, viewers of the show are familiar with because we are partnered with them. Second of which, Lighter, we just said they entered the public phase. It is another perp dex where you can earn Lighter points. Abstract, I feel like the talk about Abstract has gone down a bit on the timeline recently, but just maybe a couple of days ago, picked up traction again. Obviously, the L2 related to the Pudgy and Pengu ecosystem, where you earn XP by holding assets, using dApp, streaming, playing games there, etc. Polymarket on the prediction market side. OpenSea, where you are farming XP, you are farming treasure chests to get some of the NFTs, which OpenSea is buying back via the fees. Then Voy, a perpstex, which also has an InfoFi campaign live at the moment. Limitless, that is the prediction market. That also did, I think it's either about to close or just recently closed, a massively oversubscribed round on Kaito. Project X, that goes back to the Hype EVM side of things. You mentioned it earlier as well, Funky. That is the initially a DEX, now also a bridging aggregator, where you can farm points by swapping, providing liquidity, bridging stuff around. And the last one in Whale's list, Wall Chain, basically Kaito competitor, so InfoFi there as well, with 3 honorable mentions: Mirrored Markets, which is a prediction market on Abstract, Aster, and Cerebro. Cerebro being a portfolio tracker, one that I, full disclosure here, am using myself. I am advising them. I invested in the company, so quite like them. Just wanted to get your thoughts. I know, Funky, like not necessarily the biggest airdrop farmers, but from these opportunities, if there's like anything standing out to you, and then I'm gonna give my take on that as well and share how I'm positioning myself.
I mean, Yeet, obviously, right? Like you got me in there, and admittedly, I gambled away all my money. I used my free Polkadot money for the last 2 months for the yapping, and I'm like, okay, I don't want to put any like real risk into this. It's free money that I'm getting from, so I just basically just threw it in there, and farmed my way up to platinum. So I mean, hopefully I'll get a good airdrop there, and it's just fun, right? I made some content, and I have a couple. I don't have them on right now, but I got the Ray-Ban metas, so I have a funny first-person view of me like cheering on Fartcoin, watching Coin Race, which is one of my most favorite degen things. But the one I think that it's probably had a lot of hype, and then it's kind of decreased a bit. And I want to give a shout out to Chris and Steve because they're listening. But Coffee with Captain, I was listening to at the gym one morning, maybe last week, and they were talking about abstract. And I think it's kind of, the attention has fallen off of it. And so I think that that's interesting that Whale pointed that one as being under farmed. And they were wondering if at Bit Basel, or Art Basel rather, in December, if that's going to be, because I think that's when they announced Pengu last year. So they're wondering, like, are they going to announce, is Luca going to talk about like the abstract TGE happening in December? So, that would kind of line up with big announcements for them. Igloo's, headquartered in Miami. So that could be an interesting play. So it kind of tells you that maybe you still have a few months, and we likely will see pudgies and little pudgies kind of rip, with the expectation of getting some kind of airdrop. I still haven't bridged over my Pengu. Husker, I'm sure, is probably listening, and he gave the instructions for how to do that. So I should at least, at a bare minimum, bring my Pengu over there. But those are the two that I'd be personally paying attention to, just because I have some kind of skin in the game. But yeah, to your point, I don't really have a whole lot of time to airdrop farm. I'm doing, of course, Project X, just because I'm trying to farm all the different Hypurr EVM stuff. And I finally cracked, I think I'm near the top 750 for being late. That's not bad, but I want to get into the top 500.
Nice. What else are you doing on Hype EVM at the moment?
So basically, I use Felix by just throwing some Bitcoin in it, taking a low, like my liquidation is like 87K or something like that. And so I just took some stables out, and then I put some into Liminal. I put some into Hyperfi, because they're giving like a 5x on points for USDC. And then I put some into, what's the other one? Hyperlend. So those are the ones that, they were mentioned in FarmRick's guide. So I thought, okay, these are a good place to start. I'm glad I didn't do Hyper Vault. I saw that there was some kind of shady stuff, and I don't know if they were rugging or what happened with Hyper Vault. But those are the main ones that I'm basically farming right now.
Yeah, it's the same list for me. And the only thing I add to that is I have Kinetic, the liquid hype staking protocol exposure, providing hype liquidity on Project X. That's probably like one of my bigger LPs. In terms of the other ones that Whale mentioned, Yeet, I agree. I think it is underfarmed. I think generally casinos are not very popular to be farmed by people, which is something just find, I find that hilarious. And I said it early in the Modern Market Telegram chat that there's people in the comments who say, yeah, they don't want to farm a casino, but they're like happy to farm treasure chests, which have random things in them, which is exactly a loot box, which is a casino. But hey, abstract, I have a fair amount of XP by just holding assets there. It never been too active on the DApp side of things, but that kind of connects it to Polymarket. So I personally think I am too late for Polymarket, because I would have to put significant time and volume in to look like for low risk bets where I can go in with good volume and try to play catch up, which I just don't want to focus on at the moment. And hence I did turn my attention more to mirrored markets, because it is on abstract. So hopefully I can also get some extra XP by using them as well, and farm mirrored. The only thing with mirrored is that some of the markets are like very small, like 10 to 13, 15K volume, but also some of them feel like such free trades. Just yesterday, I entered a market which was, what will gold do? Will it first hit 4K or 3.1, I think? I don't know if it had a time limit or so, but it was like at only 84%, despite gold being almost at 3.9K. So to me, I think gold's going to go to 4 before it's going to go down all the way to 3 point something. It's a free trade to enter, but unfortunately you can't do that with massive size, because I think just like 1K that I put in boosted the odds by 3% or so. But I do tend to like airdrop plays where I can do some sort of like 2-in-1, 3-in-1 play. Just set it with hype EVM, have the kinetic hype and regular hype LP to get both Project X as well as kinetic exposure. I do the same thing with a plasma farm, which RCIV shared first. I picked it up in our Telegram chat where I have this LP on Balancer between USDI and USDT0, farm some more plasma tokens, but also have a 10x allo allocation, which is going to be for the platform ICO by USD So I feel like there's like often nice ways to do 2-in-1 sometimes even maybe 3-in-1 stuff, because with some of the liminal stuff that you mentioned, you might also get a potential unit airdrop if that is to come as well. Definitely think that over the next couple of weeks on the show, we'll spend more time on talking airdrops. Definitely also something that we've been talking more and more in the modern market chat as well, because I feel like it's that season again. And at the same time, it's also like pre-sale season. Really curious to see what Legion is going to do with yield bases and other things to come out. So that's typically the season where I tend to do pretty well. And I feel like that airdrops are still like one of the best ways to level up a small portfolio, even level up a big portfolio without taking too much directional risk, with being able to do that in a delta neutral way. So I think that's going to be hopefully helpful for our listeners.
Yeah, and
With
you never know either too, in terms of just like the small things that go happen with plasma, right? You put in $5 and get like $9,000 worth of tokens. So I mean, that could also happen for people who are, have limited capital, if it's something where you're farming and they may give extra than what you would expect anyhow. So that's never a bad thing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, we have like probably 20 minutes left in the show. Spend a bit of time on this airdrop chat, but let's get into it, starting with the first headline, which we already said the crypto market is up. And once again, it's not only crypto being up, gold is having another good day, up another 0.4%, almost at 3.9K. The S&P 500 was up 0.34%, crossed 6.7K points as well. But at the same time, we have the shutdown. We also have the bond market in Japan being the weakest it's ever been. That means the yields have been the highest they've ever been since 2008. We have potentially the payroll report, which is supposed to come out tomorrow, being delayed as a result of the shutdown. Also, as a result of the government shutdown, it looks like we'll see some delay with the ETFs. We expected Solana ETFs, other pending ETFs to come pretty fast, but the SEC decisions on applications for these ETFs are on hold during this government shutdown. So there's a couple of things that do affect us when it comes to the progress in crypto regulations, if you want to put it like that. Also, Nate Gerasi said the same. That looks like a prolonged government shutdown. I'm sharing this post on screen. Would definitely impact the launch of new spot crypto ETFs. ETF Cryptober, I like October more, might be on hold for a bit. Going to the Polymarket bet, which we also took a look at 2 days ago, I think. When will the government shutdown end? Has picked up significant volume, by the way, 1.2 mil now. Is basically the market is pretty uncertain about that. You have 3 brackets, 28% thinking somewhere next week, October 6th to 9th, 32% thinking somewhere between October 10th to October 14th, and a bit more than a third, 35% thinking October 15th or later. Notable move there is that this used to be, so October 15th or later used to be higher. So this went down, and it seems that more people are thinking it's going to end anywhere between October 6th and 14th, as these odds have been rising. And definitely wanted to check in with you, Funky, to see if you have any updated thoughts on the shutdown since we spoke on Tuesday.
Yeah, my updated thoughts are never fade poly market, right? Because I famously said 2 days ago, like, I don't think it'll happen, right? Like, and so I thought it'd be easy money to vote the opposite way. So, and it did happen. And I also thought that the markets would have a very negative reaction to the, government shutdown, and that didn't happen either. So, yeah, just thank you, crowd wisdom, for proving me wrong and being an idiot. Having said that, I don't know how long it'll last. I think the wisdom of the crowd clearly doesn't know how long it's going to last. Just when you look at the spread across those poly markets, poly market bet, the range, like it's basically like evenly split into thirds for all intents and purposes. What I did learn, and this is a nerdy fun fact that I just want to share with the modern market audience today, I only learned this yesterday, thanks to my friend Sam Arms, who is the president and founder of the Florida Blockchain Business Association, that this started in 1974 thanks to Richard Nixon. This was not something that ever happened before that with government shutdowns. And apparently because the Congress, and this is during the Watergate scandal, he effectively said, I'm not going to spend all this money that you've earmarked, because he was growing concerned about it. And so what they did was they passed a completely different act in 1974 called the Congressional Budget and Impoundment Control Act. And what that effectively did was give the power of the purse to Congress. And they effectively now are sitting in the seat where they can make these kinds of decisions. And because of the way that they do the budgets, like the Congressional Budget Office, all these things came out of the act, the CBO. And so this led to then, and government shutdown started in 1976. And typically it's where like the two parties, there's not a lock, which we have right now, right? With the Republicans, of course, having from the White House down. The first time it happened in the 70s was in the Carter administration, when it was all Democrats. So it can happen, because normally you would think when one party controls it, it's not going to happen, but there is a precedent for that happening as well. So just really interesting that I learned all that stuff yesterday. And so I am curious. I thought that it would be something that would be short-lived. I guess we'll see what happens in the next couple days. I know, again, there's the essential workers still will continue on, but I saw like upwards of 1 million would be furloughed. So they're just going to be sent home and effectively not working. So, some of the more bureaucratic things about the government probably will grind and slow down. Not that it was ever fast or efficient before. So I'm curious to see how this does play out, especially if it goes for more than a week. I think that's when we'll start to maybe see a pinch and how things are, timeline escalates in terms of just the arguments that are going to be had between the parties and everything else.
Is this then also the timeline where you would start to maybe not get worried, but expect more volatility on the market if this were to last for longer than a week? Or do you think that just by the fact that we have a shutdown, October is still on, we have like 4 days of green candles in a row, ETF inflows look good, gold stocks are up, that we have basically established consensus that it's a nothing burger? Or do you think that at a certain point the sentiment will flip?
It's hard to say, at least in my mind. I think that there's too much momentum to really, stop the train right now. And I think that this is probably what they're pushing for in terms of just the rhetoric will be like, look, everything's going well. Why are we going to slow down and stop all these things from happening? So I got to imagine that they probably will broker some sort of deal. I would be shocked if it lasts for more than a week. But then again, I was dead wrong 2 days ago. So, it could very last, because I think people were previously also predicting that if it did happen, it would be very short-lived. And now it looks like the market has changed its mind about that.
Yeah, fair enough. I think that's all there is to say on this. And we can move on to the second headline, which is to do with PunkStrategy, with all of these NFT strategies doing tremendously well. Let me bring the chart up on screen, showing PunkStrategy being at 134 mil FTV. That is 13.9 cents in terms of price action, up 23% over the last 24 hours. Was up almost 40 when it went higher earlier this morning. And where's the post? Johnny Utah had this to say on that. The new token work strategy should be launching soon. Stay tuned. Overall market cap of all strategies is at 202 mil. It's down a bit now. Checking in live on the NFTstrategy.fun website, it's 182. PunkStrategy with 19 punks in the vault. Herbster, that is the Moonbird strategy, looking very strong. All strategies looking very, very strong. And T-Farmer also added to that. Congrats to Moonbirds and Spencer, for being the first NFT strategy collection to cross the $10 million mark and kicking the flywheel into high gear, with the NFT reaching a 3.7 ETH floor and rising. Well done, Burbs. And I feel like this momentum is surprisingly strong. So I thought that this will last for a bit, because we have the season where we like the digital asset treasury companies. We have seen that the punk community seems to really like PunkStrategy. We had some people even donating to the contract, which is then also used to acquire more punks. So I think it had this like important support level from the punks community. But what I honestly did not expect is for it to rip high in such a short time. And I told you, I think I told Brad on the show that was yesterday that I had to quickly trade out of my Punkster position because I needed the cash for something else, and I traded back in. And I thought I traded back in, but it didn't because the transaction didn't go through, and then I had to rebuy later. So I bought pretty early on, to be fair, so I'm up a very fair amount of my bags, but I'm still willing to hold this for the moment and entertain the future price action, because I think it could still go a good amount higher from here. But then again, I was also completely wrong about the timing of that. I never expected it to escalate so quickly and so strongly.
Same, and that's like I said, I faded this too. I am in now. I finally just bought like a small amount and put it with like half an ETH into the LP just to make fees, and I did it at the full range because I was like, I don't want to babysit this thing, and it's still done pretty good. I've earned some fees from it, and it's slowly. The nice thing about the full range is it's very slowly bleeding out the Punkster. So maybe if I get down to say the final 10,000 coins, I'll take it out or whatever. But like to your point, don't see this thing slowing down anytime soon. I could see this thing honestly in a crazy frenzy going all the way to like 1 billion. Like people who can't afford to like have a punk, like, oh, I'm going to have some kind of punk exposure. Where I wonder what's going to happen, whether it's PunkStrategy or any of them, is what's going to happen when the organic demand that's continuing to feed the floor, like if you get to a saturation point where you're now touching your own floor that you're setting through the contract as you acquire these, NFTs, regardless whether punks, burbs, pudgies, any of them, is that when the flywheel is going to slow down and sort of grind to a halt? And then, of course, on top of that, for the main one for PunkStrategy, I think somebody was saying like 1% of all the fees from the subsidiaries get fed into PunkStrategy too. So, that's another great, I think, structure in terms of like how it's supporting sort of the actual market cap for PunkStrategy. I mean, I still think it has a lot more to rip, honestly. I just feel like it's going to, and it could also be seen as a meme, right? Like even though it has a very specific function in terms of acquiring punks and flipping them, which I think it's done successfully once at like for 4 ETH or something like that. What I'm wondering is if like people just see it like as this is sort of the hot meta and the meme, and this is the chief one among them. I think if you got in early on some of these others, like imagine if you got into Burb right when it started, or like Ray had Dick Strategy or whatever, and that thing just absolutely ripped and continues to rip. So some of the subsidiaries are doing really well too. Yeah, I'm curious to see where this goes.
Yeah, just to double click on that, it's not some of the subsidiaries which are doing well. It's actually all of them. So just the last 24 hours, Pudgy Strategy is the top performer, up 56%. PunkStrategy, we said it, 23%. Burb, up 45%. Squiggle Strategy, up 20%. Dick Strategy, up 30%. Toad Strategy, up 40%. Ape Strategy, up 25%. So all of them are just going higher for the time being. And because of this mechanism that it is flowing back to punks, parts of the fees are flowing back to the original to PunkStrategy. I kind of like to have exposure to that. I'm not wanting to speculate on others, despite probably missing a couple of great trades there. I wonder, and that was probably my thinking when I will start to get concerned, if we'll see a story of someone buying PunkStrategy so early that they take their PunkStrategy profits to actually buy their own CryptoPunk. Like if we get to this point, then I'm like, yeah, that's maybe becoming the top signal I want to watch out for, despite being a beautiful story and trading arc.
Good for whoever that person is. Good for you, future you, because that'd be amazing. I mean, I would do that in a heartbeat.
Right? It'd be a beautiful trade. Look, let's tackle the last headline. We have 10 minutes left in the show. We're probably also going to get to talk a bit more on the RWA side as well. But to do the headline first, which is to do with Solana getting another treasury firm with a $2 billion plan backed by Marinate, the DeFi protocol. And it is VisionSys AI, which is joining this roster of Solana digital asset treasury companies, which now collectively hold $3 billion in tokens. VisionSys AI, this is what you need to know, is a Nasdaq listed company. They announced a $2 billion treasury strategy, which will be focused on Solana, and they first aim to acquire and stake $500 million worth of SOL within the next 6 months. And the company is based in Beijing. I don't think that it even matters. It was dedicated to brain-machine interface technologies and AI, but now it is a Solana treasury company. And that comes basically on the back of quite a few treasury announcements, especially on Solana, which we have been through. And the other thing that I wanted to add in the mix with this headline is coming via CoinDesk, and it's the Circle news, which is expanding their 635 mil tokenized treasury fund to Solana amid rapid RWA, real world asset growth. And basically, Circle's tokenized money market fund is the fifth largest offering on the market. Sector is currently valued, or is nearing $8 billion, tripled in size over the course of the last year. And they specifically now want to introduce their tokenized US treasury fund, to Solana, because it existed on ETH, on Near, on Base, Canton before. They also plan to add it to BNB, but Solana is the thing that they want to focus on right now, because, and as we discussed it on the show a couple of times, they see this massive potential on the RWA side of things. So Funky, I know that this is one of the topics that you really like. So I'm quite curious to hear your thoughts on that piece of news.
So I'll start with the Solana thing broadly. I do wonder if some of these DATs that are coming to market are not going to capture the value that we would expect, because MicroStrategy, when you think about that, was a proxy for a Bitcoin ETF for years, right? Literally, they started acquiring Bitcoin long before ETFs ever became a thing. And so, yes, now in a world where we have HODL from Bank or IBIT from BlackRock, like it has held its own because it already had such a massive, first mover advantage and just all that it accumulated. We already, people keep talking about Solana ETFs being approved. One has already been approved, and I've mentioned it before. Like our partners at RexShares produced an ETP called SSK, which you actually get staking yield. So you could buy Solana and you get staking yield that gets paid out like a dividend on top of like having Solana as the underlying exposure, which is great. But in a world where a bunch of these Solana ETFs are probably going to get approved in the next month or two, like what does that look like on parity when you have these other DATs? Like what is the value that the DAT's going to provide over an ETF? Because an ETF is pretty much going to be guaranteed to stay at NAV, right? Like you're not going to have this movement or paying a multiple or a premium over the MNAV, which you typically see with some of the DATs, or they're going to crash below it, right? So I guess that might be another arbitrage opportunity. Having said that, I think Solana is, again, going back to RWA Summit and that experience a couple weeks ago, they had a big presence there because as Centrifuge launched its V3 and became multi-chain, one of the places they went to was Solana because they realized that there's a massive institutional interest in Solana right now. So yes, like will ETH sort of be the de facto place for TradFi for the foreseeable future? Yes. But I think the Solana Foundation is doing a very good job at trying to attract that institutional interest and bring more DeFi there. So I'm not surprised to see Circle do something like this, where they're having sort of these treasury funds being brought on to Solana specifically to grow its DeFi TVL, to kind of make it seem as if ETH is number one, Solana is number two, or maybe even 1A, underneath Ethereum in terms of like the home to do DeFi, because admittedly transactions are very cheap, right? Like, but then you get into the problem that Brett talks about over time and compression and everything else like that. So, I'm just curious to see like how this continues to evolve. I am, of course, very bullish on just RWAs in general. I think people look at it as the boring play. Like most people are going to, like most crypto degens are going to see that and be like, why do I care about a tokenized treasury? You shouldn't, and you probably never will. But the big boys, that's all they care about, because they just know, okay, slow, steady, safe yield that I can earn a nice return, and not have to like be too worried about it or moving a position in and around and doing all the things that we typically do, trying to deploy capital in multiple places. That they're not trying to do that. They're just trying to go in big and earn a nice steady state yield. So I think in terms of just like what this means for the industry, it's very good long term, because I really believe that by 2030, it's going to be a very, very different world in terms of tokenization, blockchain, and think about how AI is going to feed into helping facilitate this too, right? Like develop these things kind of faster. So I'm excited about where this is all going, and I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, fantastic points on that. The only thing I'd push back a bit on is, you said like the on-chain degens shouldn't care about this, but I think this like boring stable yield as crypto will probably get more boring over the next years is something very relevant. And when I flew into Switzerland this morning, there was an ad by some wealth managing company, and I liked it. And I thought you're going to like this one as well. It said, nurturing the practice of protecting money as it grows. And this is basically exactly that. So just to give you some more stats on the RWA market, since we're speaking of it, let me get RWA.xyz, which is the main site I use to look at RWA stats on screen. Total RWAs on chain at 32.32 bill. That is up 12% over the last 30 days. 400K asset holders with 223 asset issuers. Stablecoin value, obviously we speak about that a lot, is a 290 bill. That's up 6% over the last 30 days with 193 million stablecoin holders. That's way more than I would have expected, to be honest. And then I want to scroll down to, where is it? There we go. The biggest asset issuers, Biddle Fund by BlackRock is number one, $2.6 billion in value. Then you have both the gold issuers, Paxos Gold and Tether Gold, with 1.1 bill and 945 mil respectively. I think there was, I don't know which protocol that was, that said a 4% yield on gold to be farmed on Solana, which is something that I like quite a lot, to be able to use my gold in a productive way. Then you have Janus Henderson, the fund, which is on Centrifuge, that sits at 790 mil. And just this list continues on with more and more protocols and names, obviously like Franklin Templeton, which we spoke about on the show, and the aforementioned Circle USYC. Funky, any last thoughts on that before we wrap it up for the day?
No, I think that those are great stats to look at, and I think it provides the perfect context for just how huge this part of the industry is going to be. I love seeing my Centrifuge team number 4 there, and I think that so many people just have slept on this team. They're the ones that actually created the initialism RWA, first ones to put anything on chain, everything else. So really happy to see them just continue to keep shipping and getting these incredible partnerships from the TradFi world.
Sounds good. Love it. That brings us to a close of the show. We are going to be back tomorrow, same time, same place. Hopefully, I will be able to have another green day tomorrow. Then we have 5 green days in a row, a very, very beautiful week. Then, obviously, we're going to upload the episode to Spotify, to Apple podcasts as per usual. Also, clip it, get that out as well. And we're going to be back, same place, same time, 7 a.m. Eastern time on Friday. In the meantime, have a wonderful Thursday and see you tomorrow.
See you, gang.